Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm really happy to present to you our mayor that's going to be talking about the state of the village. I'd like to give a big shout out to Cindy Kelly. She is our supervisor here in the Civic Center who did an outstanding job putting this together, and also the treats and coffee. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. It's always my pleasure to introduce the mayor, Keith Peacock. Keith has been just an incredible force in Orland Park, what he has done during his 8-year term. I had a front row, a seat to see what we've done in the last certainly 6 years of my tenure. So I couldn't be more proud of him and more honored to introduce him this morning. Mayor Keith Peacock.
Thank you, Cindy, and thanks everyone for being here. This is my 7th. In my first year was obviously done also in March before the election by the former mayor. And I always like going through this because we go through all of the things, and I remember how the state of the villages used to be, where we really didn't get much information. We got a lot of other people talking. So here you get to hear everything's going on in the village. You get to talk to the mayor. You get to hear about what's happening, and then afterwards ask any questions that you've got. So these are the areas we're going to cover. We'll cover, they're kind of the big areas of the village: economic development, which is important to all of us, finance, public safety, and our infrastructure investments. So on the economic development front, and we all know that during my 8 years, we've faced a lot of challenges with the 2 anchors, but really 5 big stores leaving in February of 2018, 8 months into your tenure, to hear that that's a challenge when you lose Sears, Carson's Home Goods, Toys R Us, and Babies R Us, all in the same month. And very quickly, we replaced Carson's with Von Mauer. Obviously, the BJ's Brew House and that entire strip went into Toys R Us. Vinny's expanded into Babies R Us. There's a indoor storage going into the Carson's Home Goods. Actually, it was approved 3 years ago, but they've been in some contract dispute. So apparently, that is actually going to get done this summer. And then lastly, we have the Sears, which the exciting thing to announce there, we know that we had an AMC plan to go there. COVID hit. They had already started the interior work, gutting the interior. When COVID hit, they stopped. The company that owned it kind of went out of business nationwide. And then also the AMC, obviously with the movie theaters, they kind of retrenched and didn't expand into it. So we lost that. And so that made it a challenge. It was purchased by someone else who, frankly, was looking to do things that the village really wouldn't approve. And they have since put it up for sale, and it looks like it's being bought by Dick's Sporting Goods, and we approved an inducement agreement on Monday, so it's very exciting. They're putting a new concept, their Dick's House of Sports, and they're going to go from the Dick's they're in right now, they're going to go over to the Sears location, which is going to be much bigger, more experiential. That particular format has increased traffic at the malls it's been at by 30%. Since our mall is already a top 1% traffic mall, that's fantastic news for Orland Park, fantastic news for the mall. And yes, it does leave another hole that we'll have, but it's a much smaller location. And talking to people that we know in the industry, much easier to fill than 200,000 square feet. But you can see all that COVID was difficult on the economy, but look at all that we've added. Now at PGA Superstore, Seasons 52, Forward H.L., going down the list, Portillo's recently, the Dick's that I just talked about, Hobby Lobby, Medical, Silver Cross, the affiliated colleges. There's another one at 43 Orland Square being redeveloped. The grocery store, Peach Fresh Market, just opened. Wild Fork just opened. Another Aldi. On the auto side, we've got Tesla, Porsche, BMW expanding. So residential, Waterford Point, it's ongoing right now. And then Estates of Ravinia Meadow was just approved. It's the first single family only subdivision we've had in a long time. And it's about 135 units. And the only variance was lot frontage. They're all over 10,000 square feet. So it's a fantastic development between the Costco and the movie theaters. So also we added a hotel, Hampton Inn, which is doing great. Mini Academy, which is a daycare. And then Planet Fitness is going into the old minis. And of course, the other exciting news is the Triangle, the downtown Orland Park. It's a project we were saddled with, went back to early 2000s when a lot of our money was spent to buy out businesses, force out businesses. Eminent domain was used as a threat to force out other businesses. Just not a very good use of our money. As it turns out, we lost $47 million on it, plus we still owe a metro parking lot, and we have to move utilities, so we're more like $55 million. But still, whether or not, whatever happened in the past doesn't matter. We have to move forward. And so, many of you know we've been working on this for a long time. In about 2018, 2019, we approved a company called Structured Development. I say we, 5 members of the board voted for that. Jim Dodge and I voted against it and voted for Edwards Realty. Structured back out of the deal during COVID. Edwards was still willing to do it. As we learned, there was basically the apartment builders, Flaring Collins, had a right of refusal until 2022 on this property. So we really couldn't do anything. So if you wonder why it's taking so long, that's why. And then at that point, Edwards really worked hard on the development, talking to the market to come up with something. And in October, we created a new TIF, basically starting from scratch down there. And I'm going to show you a little bit about what's going there.
Downtown Orland Park's proposed entertainment district will focus on a pedestrian experience dedicated to creating an active plaza that will attract some of Chicagoland's most desirable cafes, restaurants, and marketplaces. There will be over 140,000 square feet of new building space that will be used for retail, restaurant, entertainment, and other commercial uses. But most importantly, no new residential space will be built. At the heart of all this development is Heroes Park. This park will be designed to be the centerpiece of the iconic development and will be home to art fairs, farmers markets, concerts, and a new ice rink. Parcels A and B will be used for a mix of commercial and office use. Jefferson Street will be a pedestrian-only street separating the two parcels and is intended to create a unique dining experience for the community. Some highlights of the other parcels include
So that's an idea of what it looks like. So that's an idea of what it looks like. The one thing that you can see that's changed here with the new plan is the park is now turned 90 degrees and extending out towards the east, and the entertainment building is going behind the garage. So that's the one change, which so makes the park the centerpiece of the project, where it's interacting with all of those different sites, and we expect to see restaurants, office space, some entertainment uses there as well. And as of right now, we're breaking ground on the 27th of March. Is that correct? Right. March 27th, we're gonna break ground, start moving dirt. So you'll actually see development there, which we've been waiting now for 25 years from what we've heard about. So it's taken a long time since I've been here to get this done, and had a lot of stuff we had to deal with, but we've gotten it done, and really excited to see it move forward. And hopefully by the end of 2026, if everything goes smoothly, or as smoothly as we plan on it going anyways, that everything will be open. So hopefully also soon we'll have a few announcements to make about those some of the tenants that are going in. When you really look at economic development, you talk about how many jobs have we added. I was actually shocked by this number, because we've had to replace so many things as businesses fell out and closed during COVID. We had to add so many new things. We've added over 5,000 jobs in the last 8 years since I've taken office. So when you think about going through COVID, going through all those losses in town, that's fantastic. And to put it in perspective, Cook County's lost jobs, Illinois' lost jobs, yet we've gained. So that tells you that we're doing extremely well. Now that brings me to the financials. So many of you have seen this before, and now we actually have taken the 2017, these were the projections in 2017. When I became mayor, my first budget cycle, June or July of that year, I was shown this chart on the left by the finance director. And essentially she was expressing to me the concerns she's had for many years about where we were headed with our operating expenses. We were paying for a lot of our operating expenses out of our capital budget. So things that fix roads and parks and things, we were actually paying for day-to-day operations out of that. So that's some of the reason why those things weren't being fixed. And our reserves, so we try and keep 20% reserves. That's kind of cash on hand to deal with, untimely payments from the county or those types of things. So we try to keep a 20% reserve. That's our policy. You can see we're at 35 in 2015 and 2016. In 2017, it dropped to 23. 2018 budget showed a drop in 22, and then you can see what was projected. Continued decline, and we were actually going to be eating, and we were not even going to have any reserves. We were basically operating way more expensively than what we were bringing in. So we made a lot of changes. Beginning in 2018, we did an early retirement program. We cut 14% of our operating budget, probably 10% of our employees. We cut just about everything we could, and financial ship. Our reserves, you can see what they ended up being when they were audited here. In the team, we were able to even make some changes there, and they continued to go up. Now, you can say, well, you had all this money, why did you keep bringing it in? Well, what we did was, you can see why it dropped there, 59, then 48, and 33. We took that extra money and we used it. But I think this gives the big picture. That's where we were supposed to be in 23. That's actually audited, not the budget. That's the 2023 audit, is 33%. So that's what we actually did. That's a pretty distinct difference from what was projected. So I want to thank our board over the last 6 years for all they've done to make this happen. So what did we do? As we talked about, eliminated waste, improved efficiencies. We restructured debts. We invested in IT. I mean, we could not, anybody here remember doing stuff in here before? Could you actually hear anything that was going on? Actually use this technology? Nothing. So we invested in IT networking everywhere throughout the village. I would say we had almost no IT that was worth anything when I got here, and I would say we're top of the line now, so which will last us for a long time, helps us be a lot more efficient. We outsource some things, we insource some other things. We always look at it as to what's the most efficient way to do stuff. And the other thing is debt's gone down. So the previous 20 years, debt went from 13 million to 110. We brought it down. So we've been able to do all of this. So Orland Park is about 5.6% of your property bill. Our goal is to lower that under 5%. I know everyone's going, well, my property tax bill is going up. Yeah, it is, and we've actually lowered it, which is very frustrating for us because we actually lowered our levy. We're the only taxing body that lowered our levy. We've done it the last couple of years. So it's like, what's happening here? So this, it's just a longer video, but this video, I think, will, it tries to explain it. It's complicated, but hopefully this will be helpful.
In the last couple of weeks, we have all been receiving our property tax bills. Not only are these bills being delivered and have due dates 3 to 4 months earlier than normal, homeowners have been hit with massive tax increases. I have received several inquiries and felt that this informational video on property taxes would be helpful. The property tax system in Cook County is ridiculously complicated, but I will attempt to simplify it using the Village of Orland Park's levy as an example. All taxing bodies levy a fixed dollar amount of property taxes, which is represented by the pie shown here. Additionally, every property in the Village of Orland Park has an assessed value. Consider each of those properties a slice of the pie. All of those property values are totaled, and your property pays its proportion, or the size of your slice. This year, Orland Park decreased its tax levy by $491,870, or 3.44%. So the size of the pie is actually smaller. Additionally, the number of residential and commercial properties increased, so there are more slices in the pie. This leads us to the question that you are probably asking, which is, then how do our property taxes in the village go up? The reason is that your property value went up relative to the total value, therefore a higher proportion. The reason for this is that the Cook County assessor shifted the tax burden to residential homeowners, which I will show you with data from the recent tax bills. To begin with, it is important to note where the bulk of your taxes come from. The Village of Orland Park is only 5.6% of this year's tax bill, down from nearly 7% when I took office. The board's goal is to drive this down to 5% or less. Overall, about 80% of your tax bill comes from schools, elementary, high school, and community college, as well as the Fire Protection District. This is a representative tax bill. It happens to be mine, that had a 31% tax increase of nearly $4,000. The graph is the actual dollar amount of each taxing body, where you can see that the Village of Orland Park, for all we do, is far less than District 135, District 230, and the Fire Protection District. Below the graph, you will see the percentage increase from 2022 to 2023 on the top row, and the levy increase from each district at the bottom. You will notice that District 135 has the highest dollar increase, a 33% increase. You will also notice that only MWRD and the other Cook County taxing bodies went up more than this percentage. But these increases were way higher than the associated levy increases. If you go back to the pie that we discussed, how does this happen? If these taxes, or your taxes, are going up more than the levy, then somebody's taxes must be going down. In Cook County taxing body cases, the slices of the pie are from all of Cook County, so the Cook County assessor has clearly shifted the burden to Orland Park taxpayers. The highest increases were Cook County Public Safety and Health Services, which Orland Park residents use minimally but pay a lot to subsidize the rest of Cook County. The frustrating part for me is that the governor has blamed mayors, and the Cook County treasurer and assessor have blamed municipalities for these increases. The facts show that this is not true. The Village of Orland Park represents only 5.6% of your tax bill and only 3.8% of the increase. In fact, in spite of being a smaller part of the tax bill, MWRD and Cook County Public Safety increase more than the village. Almost 2/3 of the increases come from schools. In fairness, the treasurer did point this out as well, but she ignores Cook County's increase, which is 13%. This brings me back to the levy. I will focus here on local levies, not the ones that span all of Cook County. You will see that only 2 taxing bodies decreased their levies, and the others all increased the property tax they levied by over 4%, with District 135 raising their levy 7.82% compared to 4.72% at D230 and 4% at D146. The other grade school district, 140, lowered their levy by 0.75%, while the Village of Orland Park lowered ours by 3.44%, as I previously said. This brings me back to the question of how does a property tax bill go up 31% when the highest levy is up less than 8% and the average levy increase is less than 5%? The reason is that the Cook County assessor shifted the tax burden to homeowners in the south and southwest suburbs. The graph on the left shows the aggregate tax increase for each taxing group. You can see that the total tax increase for Chicago is 2.85% and the north and northwest suburbs 4.1%. Meanwhile, the south and southwest suburbs increased by 9.36%. It is clear that the assessor shifted the burden of taxes to the south and southwest suburbs. Within the south and southwest suburbs, single-family homes went up almost 16%, while commercial properties dropped 12.6% and multifamily properties dropped 7.5%. It is clear that within the south and southwest suburbs, the assessor shifted the tax burden to homeowners. That includes seniors on fixed incomes. The graph on the right shows the total dollar value of the increases as well. Overall, 55% of the Cook County property tax increase is being paid by the homeowners in the south and southwest suburbs. The Cook County assessors and his cronies on the Board of Review put the burden on homeowners, period. These graphs make it obvious what happened with this tax bill. But otherwise, why have property taxes been systemically high in Illinois and in Cook County? The state of Illinois is the biggest reason for our property tax burden. For decades, and especially the last 6 years, the state has been spending uncontrollably and passes a lot of that burden onto local government taxing bodies. For example, pensions. We know that ridiculous public sector pensions are crushing the state. There was an improvement put into law in 2011 called Tier 2, but even that fix is under attack. Next is the local government distributive fund. I have spoken about this at length. Historically, until 2011, municipalities received a 10% sharing of income tax receipts. That dropped below 6% for a period of time and have since been restored to slightly over 6%. To put this in real dollars, Orland Park has been shorted over $50 million since 2011 and expects to receive about $5.5 million less this year than we should. Unfunded mandates. The state passes mandates for municipalities, schools, fire districts, park districts, etc. that must be implemented and paid for, but does not provide the funding needed to pay for them. Some of these include body-worn cameras, paid leave, minimum wage mandates, healthcare mandates, and mandates on schools, including staffing and social services that are not education related. The next is local government preemption. This is when the state implements policies that preempt our local government authority and are another form of unfunded mandates. The one that is particularly galling is funding benefits for non-citizens. Since Governor Pritzker has taken office, this amount has skyrocketed to over $1 billion a year for health, housing, and education benefits for non-citizens at the expense of our citizens. Also, the state school funding formula really impacts the schools. This formula under the current administration shifts money towards Chicago Public Schools and the Chicago Teachers Union. While Orland Park schools receive approximately 8% of their funding from the state of Illinois, the Chicago Public Schools receive over 25%. As mayor, I can assure you that the current village board is doing what we can regarding property taxes. We lowered our levy, as you have seen, and I continue to work with other mayors to lobby the state to fully fund our local government distributive fund and to be more fiscally responsible. Unfortunately, since we represent only 5.6% of your tax bill, we don't have an oversized impact. However, given that the Cook County Assessor's Office is blaming municipalities when residents called, I felt it was important to give you the facts. This year's property tax increase lays at the feet of one person and one person only, the Cook County Assessor. The systemic problem of high property taxes largely lies with the state. So what can you do to help lower your property taxes? Make sure that your assessment is correct. Also, make sure that you are receiving your homeowner's exemption and any other exemptions that you may qualify for, including your senior exemption. Appeal your assessment. Though I will tell you that residential homeowners are seeing much more limited success with this than in past years, you should still give it a try. As you can see from my property tax bill, I feel your pain, as does every village board member. We are all committed to doing whatever we can to run the village efficiently and keep your property taxes low. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope that this was informative. So I know that was long, but it's a complicated issue, and so that's why we put this together. I hope more people will go see it, go watch it, go understand it, but that's what's happening. We talked a little bit about the LGDF shortfall. You can see year by year what we've been shorted. Also recently, you know that the state, the governor and the legislature eliminated the grocery tax, and everyone goes, oh great, we got rid of the grocery tax. 1% is what it is. But it's the only tax the state collects that flows directly through to where it's collected from. So the state actually, it didn't impact their budget 1 penny, not one. But every municipality that has grocery stores, it impacts them. So that is another approximately $3 million out of our budget beginning in 2026 that somehow we have to fill in the gap. What's interesting is they allowed villages, municipalities to implement their own grocery tax. Now the state will charge us a collection fee. So the state actually stands to gain money from eliminating the grocery tax. So that's quite a sleight of hand. We also inherited a lot of things that, there were a lot of bad decisions made. Let's just put it that way. So a lot of capital costs that we inherited. The big one, obviously, the triangle losses. We've talked about $47 million, but also Orland Health and Fitness. We basically swapped land to get the Orland Health and Fitness to become a business owner. They were going to shut down. Payless Health was going to shut that down. Well, anyone who knows business, do you think they were going to act, that they'd been investing in the property if they were going to shut it down? They hadn't. So we've spent over $13 million, I think it's now $13.5 million on Orland Health and Fitness to get it up to speed. So you can argue that getting that for $13 million was worth it. You can argue that it wasn't worth it. I can argue either side. But what I can't argue is that they had no idea it was going to cost us $13 million because they didn't do any due diligence. So they had no idea. They just got it and then said, oh, we'll deal with it later. That is not a way to make decisions. Tinley Creek, it's a project we're working on. Could have been done in 2014. Had to get a lot of homeowners to give us easements. I think the number of easements we have to get now was up like 15. We've got most of them. There's 4 that we don't have. But the MWRD was going to fully fund the project back in 2014. It was $3.4 million. Well, now it's an $8 million project, and they won't raise what they're spending on it. So we end up covering now $4.6 million of the cost. The other triangle costs that I talked about, the Metra and moving utilities, $7 million. LaGrange landscaping, all that brick and all that's beautiful. I don't think anyone will question that it's beautiful. It also costs about $500,000 a year to maintain, but it also cost us $18 million. So that's what it cost us. It wasn't paid for by the state, it was paid for by us. And then Boley Farm, which we've talked about before too, we acquired that, and there was a lot of work that needed to be done on a couple of the barns and that kind of thing. It was like $2.5 million there as well. So it's like $92 million in costs from questionable decisions. That's a lot of money that could be used for capital. I get a lot of questions still about, well, what happened to our rebates? When I explain it, people are like, well, that was kind of stupid. It was. We were getting a $150 check. Does anybody remember when we would get that check? Right about now, right before the election. And I was like everyone else. I thought, oh, things must be good financially. I didn't realize the blue you see, that was the rebate every year, the total value of the rebate. The red you see was the amount of debt we took out in that same year. So we were borrowing money to give you a check. They were borrowing on your credit card. It's about $18 million in interest too. So that's $57 million. Take that 57 and that 92, that's a lot of money. So those decisions, the property tax rebates, the interest on it, the triangle, Tinley Creek, those things, the extra, so it's $148 million. Our unfunded capital, when we did our capital study and our capital project, that we didn't have money to pay for was $106 million. We could have paid for it and had $42 million left over without those decisions. So those big decisions matter, and that's not even the little ones. Those are big decisions, 3 or 4 big decisions. The state shortfalls, the LGDF projected shortfalls, plus the village, if you take that money, now you could pay for all the unfunded capital and have $110 million left over. We could do an awful lot with lowering property taxes if we had that. So these are the capital projects. You've seen this before. I'm not going to go through them all, but these are the major capital projects in 24, 25, 26, and 27 that we have. So one of the things we've done to help offset this is grants, and I really want to thank Krashid and his team and finance, and I think Rec and Public Works have all had a good part of this as well. But in 2018, we really started working hard on getting grants from other sources, from the state, from the federal government. So you can see from 2006 to 2016, it was $2.5 million in grants that we received. Since 2018, since we've made this effort, we've received $46.5 million in grants. Now, some of those we don't have yet because they're dedicated to projects in the next few years, but that includes $1.2 million this year, half going to the Schuessler Park project and half going to Dugan. So we've also applied for $59 million more in grants as well. So that offsets our capital costs a lot. But when you see that unfunded capital number, some of this is already baked into that. We assumed that we were going to get some of the grants. So you can see how that helps us a lot. As a result of all this, we've done a lot. The police training facility, which if you've been online, you can see the tour, should open in a couple months. Updated the Public Works garage and revamped the vehicle fleet. We're working on that. The water redundancy thing, which will be, or project, which will be done in 2026. Water main system, we've been replacing water mains all over. Unfortunately, Catalina's had to deal with some of that. I'll talk about it later. They've been dealing with it for a while, but we've replaced it in several places. Our local roads, they went from 40% being in poor condition to best in class. We've worked on the sidewalks, the roads, the buildings, ADA compliance, major park upgrades. You know about Humphrey, Centennial Park West, Schuessler Park, Dugan Park coming up. We're self-sufficient, less reliant on the state because we have to be. But here's the other thing that's still looming for us, and I talked about it, pensions. Now, we know pensions are a problem. We lobby against increases in the pension. By the way, there's like over 100 bills to increase pension benefits again. And according to the state constitution, once they do that, you can never take them back, okay? And I know we have a lot of public sector employers in here today. My wife is a teacher, but I can tell you, if you think your pensions are going to be there for the rest of your life, if you're 30 or 40 years old, they won't be if they don't fix it. So it's just not a sustainable model, and I'll show you why. So since 2010, that's the increase in our pension contributions. We have two major pension funds, IMRF and police. That's the increase since 2010 that we've seen. 5% annually in IMRF and 7.2% in police. So that means our police doubles every 10 years. And I can promise you our revenues are not growing that fast, nor are your salaries. Pensions were 26% of our tax levy in 2010. In 2024, they're 63% of your tax levy. They are basically, your property taxes are going to pay, two-thirds of them are going to pay pensions, and at that pace, in 8 more years, 100% of them will be going to pay pensions. These are the pension rates that we pay. Anyone in the private sector, you're probably getting 4% match on your 401k if you put that in, and you're getting Social Security. So you're getting maybe 10.5% from your employer, okay? That's what most of you get. Our IMRF is up to 13.8% in 2024, plus they get Social Security. So they're actually getting 20% put in, so double what the average taxpayer is getting. Police is up to 44.7% of their salary is going into your pensions. So most of you in the private sector, if you're getting 44% of your salary into your pay, you'd be able to retire at 50 years old. And you can't. Most people can't do that. So that's what's going into that. So back to that. If the state doesn't fix pensions, there's just no doubt that spending on capital, spending on your goods, spending on your services, something has to be, either taxes are going up more, services are going down, or your roads and parks are going to just deteriorate because there's only so much money to go around. So the pensions impact every municipality, schools, municipalities, everything. They have to do something and fix it now. Public safety. So something that's very important to us, obviously, is keeping us safe. That's what draws businesses here. That's what draws residents here. So this is the index crimes that we've tracked for the last 30 years are on this page here. The lowest 7 years of the last 30 are the last 7 years, in spite of all that's been going on in Cook County. So our police department does a phenomenal job. You can see there's, in fact, the last 6 years are less than 1,000 index crimes. Those are the only times we've been less than 1,000 index crimes. Since 2016, it's down 35%. You can see the index crimes listed on the left. Homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, theft. Theft would include shoplifting, which is the bulk of our index crimes. Motor vehicle theft, arson, and human trafficking. The one area where we're having trouble, and we've been having trouble for a while, is motor vehicle thefts. And really, it's coincided with this. Automatic starts in a fob and not a key, because people leave these in their car. 90% of the thefts that happen in town is because someone left this in their car. They just go in, hit the start button, and drive off. So the days of the, hot wiring, that doesn't happen. This is how they get stolen. 90% of our thefts are this. So don't leave. That's why we talk about the 9 o'clock routine, 9 p.m. routine. Make sure your keys are in your house. Make sure your house is locked. Don't leave this in your house, okay, or in your car. That's how your car gets stolen. Now, when Kim Foxx took office in 2017, we saw a spike. You can see that spike 36 in 2017 in violent crime. Not surprising, they stopped prosecuting and started letting violent criminals out. So we started seeing an increase. Likewise, in 2023, with the Safety Act, we saw a similar spike start to happen. Because and now Cook County was already doing that, but then they applied it to the whole state, okay? We made some adjustments in how we police in both cases and brought that number way back down. The last, at least the last 5, but probably the last 7 years, we're number 1 in the state for the lowest violent crime rate under 50,000. So that's the number of violent crimes. Most of that is aggravated assault and battery. I think of the 21, it's 15 of them are that, and I think 7 or 8 of those are against our officers. So very little violent crime. I think we know that. Orland Park's a very safe community. Theft continues to be, you remember it was 800 and something, 794, that's theft. And that's shoplifting. So that's always been and continues to be the majority of our crimes, but it's still down 37% since 2016. So there was a FOIA made and then a comment made about DUIs and how we had 200 and some in 2017. We had 135, by the way, so they're lying. And you can see the DUIs. DUIs going down is really a function of Lyft and Uber. So it's actually a good news story. Lyft and Uber, our younger generation, I know my kids, they don't even drive out to the bar, right? They Lyft and Uber to the bar knowing they have to Lyft and Uber back. So it takes the whole DUI out of play. And they're conditioned to that. It's brought, and that, you got that service right away, unlike a taxi where you'd have to hail them. And it's completely changed the game for that. And that's really why you see DUIs down. So we still enforce it, but we see a lot less of it. It's a lot safer on the roads for us. That's why you're seeing that number driven down. And you can see Uber went in 2010, Lyft went in 2012. I was just working on a project that happened to deal with Uber and Lyft a little bit, and their business from 2017, I think they were a $5 billion industry. Now they're a $15 billion industry. So it's become much more widely accepted, and that's really driving that down. So that's a good news story, not just here, but nationwide. Calls for service. We hear this, we've heard some of this too about calls for service. We need to add officers, etc. So first off, when I arrived here, we had 96 officers. We're authorized 100 full-time. We now have 100 full-time, we're full. But we also have 21 part-time officers that work up to half-time that are also on the street. So we've got 121 officers out there. So it gives us a lot more presence out there. It's made a huge difference. Calls for service, what's important about calls for service is everything counts. Everything short of going to the bathroom and taking lunch counts as a call for service. So if you take a vacation and you say, can you check my house? We'll check it once a day. Every time they go by it, it's on their list. It's boom, and that's a call for service. Lost dog, call for service. Can you come check my business? I think someone is looking around my business. That's a call for service. This does not equate to 911 calls. So we have a lot of things we do every day that's a call for service. One of the things that we did in 2017, we really started pushing for, was to do the reports, since we now have the technology, do your reports and all that from your vehicle, like sitting in front of Best Buy, because now you're a presence, and you're right there and you're available to make a call. If you're in the station, you're coming from the station. If you're across from Sandburg doing it, something happens to Sandburg, you can get there. If you're at the station, you got to go all the way there. So it gives us a lot more presence, and it also, we would classify that as a business check. We're in front of Best Buy, we're looking at Best Buy, that's a business check. That's a call for service. So what this really shows is that our guys are out there working hard and doing their job. Of course, a traffic stop counts as that, all of that. So that's why you see those numbers. Obviously, you see in 2020, COVID spiked. Did anyone have a police scanner during that time? I didn't, but did anyone? Okay, good. Because it was the people on the police scanners calling, they've heard this, and they've heard that, and they've heard this. Anyone was on it. People were calling about everything. And that's okay, right? So we still checked it. The other thing we were doing a lot then, because we had a lot of businesses that were closed, we were doing a lot more business checks because they weren't open. So that's why you see that number spike in that COVID year. So why has crime been reduced? There's a lot of reasons. I think the biggest is we promote or hire the most qualified people for each position. And we're using panel interviews now. Now, our officers are still hired the way they've always been. Board of Police and Fire Commission. Same thing with our sergeants. The Board and Police and Fire Commission still hire those and promote those. That has not changed at all. What has changed is our promotions to lieutenants, commander, deputy chief, and or hiring of that. And those are panel interviews done by staff, including the village manager, the police chief, the deputy police chief. And that panel sits in a room and actually hashes out who they think is best. And they don't leave that room until they agree. And my understanding is it has changed from time to time, from what maybe the police chief said that when everyone got in the room, they agreed on someone else. So that's the best way to hire people. We need the most qualified people in those positions. We have highly trained officers, and we hold them accountable. Those are really the two biggest components. But we also have a very supportive board, so I want to thank our board members. I didn't call them out, the ones that are here today, Trustee Radashevsky, Trustee Healy, and Trustee Katsinas. But this is just in the last couple of years. We've got new state-of-the-art tasers, upgraded duty weapons, riot helmets, gas masks, lighter body armor, vest carriers, body-worn cameras, riot shields, rifle plates. We put an AED and cell phones in every beat car. We also got them things for them, new exercise equipment so they could stay in shape. Unmarked SUVs for our detectives. Another thing that's really critical is, I think, a new peer support team. So obviously it's a challenging profession, so it's good to have that peer support. Over 15,000 hours of training in 2024. We've expanded and upgraded, or are expanding and upgrading the evidence room, because we have to hold some of that evidence forever. New firing range and training center with state-of-the-art simulators. And the simulator room is amazing. What they'll be able to do, and eventually do 360 training in there with the simulators and with VR and all that is absolutely incredible. And then we engage with our citizens and businesses. We have the beat meetings. We do DARE, we do the National Night Out, we do a lot of that. We also have a lot of programs and strategies. Our investigations, we invest more in investigations than pretty much any other community around, and we clear cases better than any other community around. Catching criminals is our biggest deterrent because they don't want to come here because they'll get caught. None of us are naive enough to think that criminals are not shopping at the mall or eating at the restaurants or doing that. But here's the difference. They're shopping at the mall and they're eating and paying at the restaurants. They're not committing crimes here. That's what we want. And that's because we close cases. So kudos to our department, our investigations division for all they do on that. We have a targeted response unit, which does a lot proactively to help keep us safe. We also put in the mobile response unit, which has reduced committals, so involuntary committals for mental health patients by about 35%. What that is we can call in an outsider to help and take over a mental health related call. This is the worst day of most people's lives that this is happening to. And to go in the criminal justice system, because that was the only option before, is not always the best option. So to be able to reduce that keeps our officers on the street and gets people the help they need and keeps them out of a screwed up system. Youth supervision policy at the mall, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about. FUSIS, which allows our businesses to sign up and link their cameras to us, as well as to you to voluntarily let us know that you have cameras so that we know where to go when something does happen. Again, getting back to catching the criminals. Autism awareness, we were the first to do that. A lot of people are copying that. Text to 911, and of course we have Leo, Maverick, and we have a new Bloodhound coming as well. So the targeted response unit really does a lot of this, the weapons arrests. So I think Chief told me in 2017 our Officer of the Year was Officer of the Year because he got 2 weapons off the street. It was the only 2 weapons off the street that year. You can see that's how many we've gotten off. 17 and 2019, up to 122 in 2022. So it was becoming a real problem. But we were able to proactively, so these are weapons that were removed off the street, not committing a crime, okay? Not committing another crime. We just caught them via traffic stops or other things that they were doing that gave us the right to search, and you can see how that's dipped. Again, once we start catching them, the word gets out, so they stop coming here.
So that's what we want. Orland Square implemented the first of its kind use supervision policy for them in March of 2021. Chief McCarthy, when I first got into office, asked me to rebuild the relationship with the mall and really wanted to see a program like this. It took a long time to get there. In 2021, they were still on the fence of whether or not to do this. And my response to them, I said, try it for 90 days. Everyone knew that the mall issue, everyone was talking about crime at the mall, crime at the mall. We have the safest mall in Chicagoland. I'm going to show you that in a bit. And we did then. But it was perception. People don't want to go there. Perception, people don't go there, they don't shop there. And I said, what do you have to lose? You need to fix the perception problem. So they implemented the youth supervision program. It was the highest on Fridays and Saturdays from 3 to 9, which are the highest retail theft periods in the mall. Implemented that in March of 2021. You can see the number of people that have been denied entry. Some of those have been banned, not a lot, but some. And the wristbands that were given to people that were with people that were supervising them. Since that's gone into effect now, 4 years, I think we've had less than 10 retail thefts in the mall during those periods, over 4 years. Not only did it work, Simon Properties is implemented in other places because it works so well. And the businesses love it, families love it. I've heard it time and time again. It's been great for the mall. I think most of the people here would say Oak Brook and Woodfield are safe malls. This is a company we use to track these malls and track our crime. So 100 would be the average crime around, in or around a mall. So that's within 3 miles of the mall, within 6 miles of the mall on the right. So 100 is average. Anything below that means you're below the average for the country. You can see ours has dipped from 55, so roughly half of what the average mall has, to 49. You can see Oak Brook's almost double ours. Woodfield's almost triple ours. If you look around 6 miles, it goes up. Well, you'll see in a minute why that goes up a lot, because now our 6 mile radius goes well into the east. And so we know that that's a little bit higher crime in those areas. So this is a 6 mile map. So you can see Orland Square's got the X in the middle. You can see where the crime is the highest. It's out, so now you're getting out 6 miles to the east of here, and now you can see where the crime is going up. I think we all know that that's where there's higher crime, but it's not here. So that's what's critical, and that's because our police department does a fantastic job. Our mall is extremely safe. The region around the mall is extremely safe. So, and we can't say that enough. Come here and shop. So it's Orland Park's one of the safest cities in Illinois and in the country. We talked about the lower index crimes and the lowest violent crimes, but also among the 360 largest U.S. suburbs, Orland Park ranks second lowest in property crime rate. That's across the whole U.S., and 5th lowest in violent crime rate. Those are FBI statistics. So that's out of 360 suburbs throughout the U.S. Orland Square Mall is the safest mall in Chicagoland. We were named the safest city in Illinois in 2020 and the 8th safest small city in the U.S. in 2021 by Money Geek. So our police do a phenomenal job. The community is incredibly safe, continues to be. It was safe before. We're even safer now, even in spite of everything that's gone on around us. So kudos to our police department for that. Now I'm going to finish off with infrastructure investment because, in my opinion, so our job is to keep you safe, first and foremost. Maybe plow the streets, pick up your garbage. But the next thing, it's our job to make sure that our infrastructure is kept up, because you're not going to pave your own road. You're not going to do your own sewers. You're not going to do your own water, right? You're not going to have your own parks. That's what government does. Those are the things we're here for. But you got to maintain those things, and we have a lot of them. So the regional water project I talked about earlier, this is Catalina, and you can go back and look at this, blow it up a little bit, but basically by 2026 this will all be done. They've been getting construction since the end of 2023. We've replaced water mains in there because they were breaking all the time.
Once that's all completed, then we will repave it all. So by the end of 2026, all of that whole Catalina, and Catalina is a huge subdivision, that'll all be done. The blue line you see there is the regional water system. That water will be turned on by the end of 2026. So a really big project, thanks for the patience of those in Catalina because there's been a lot of construction. But it was a 50-year-old subdivision, and it was necessary. It's also where the water system is at and where it's coming from, so it goes through there. So you can see they did their best to try and avoid going through your homes and all that. They went down our main roads. The village also has plans for replacing water mains throughout the village. So in 26 and 27, we'll be finishing Crystal Tree. Now people say, well, Crystal Tree's newer. It is, but back at that time, there was a material coming from China that, as it turns out, was faulty, not as good, and has been failing faster than other materials. It's a ductile iron, so there's soils over in Crystal Tree that interact with that, have been causing them to fail. Now, we would wrap them in something that's not corrosive, and that's what we do now, but then they didn't, and so that's why we're in there first. But you can see, going down the list, every year we have something. Riviera Estates, Wedgwood Estates coming up, all the way down to Arbor Point and Spring Creek in 2038. There's somebody in 2034, but I couldn't figure out who it was on the map. So, but it's based on the condition and the age. How do we judge the condition? From the water main breaks. We know where they're breaking. Some of those areas are not breaking yet, but we're anticipating that they will. That's one of the reasons we're getting into Crystal Tree, is because the area that was breaking a lot we already fixed. But we know the other area will start if we don't get it fixed. And that's why we're in Catalina now, and then one of the reasons we're doing Catalina now and the roads now is because of that regional water project. We're like, if you're going to deal with construction, better to do it all at once than to do it over 8 or 10 years. And recently, we've also done Fairway, has been done recently. Obviously, the other Crystal Tree was done recently. So we've done some other areas and gotten their work done as well. So this chart some of you have seen before. In 2018, that chart on the one on the very far left, in red is poor condition, in orange is very poor condition, and you can, in red is very poor, in orange is poor, and then fair, and then good, and then outstanding in blue. So in 2018, we had that assessment done. I wanted to spend more on roads, was blocked from doing so. The first thing we did in 2019 is we doubled our spending on local roads. Jim Dodge actually called Cindy, Mike, and Bill criminals for going along and doing that, okay? So we got a few years of getting extra money spent on it, and you can see it reduced our very poor roads and increased our good roads, but it didn't really do much for our ones that were in fair condition in the orange. We continued to do that. In 2022, we continued that policy of pushing forward. And you can see now we're in year 2025, and if everything's according to the projections, what they think they are, there's nothing in very poor condition after 2025. And by the end of 2027, we'll have a new assessment done at that time. And by the end of 2027, we'll be at 17% in fair condition, in poor condition. And so we've reduced that from over 40 to less than 20. And you can see how much is in the blue, 60% in very good condition. That's because we've gotten into your roads and fixed them. And a reminder that the previous board was against doing this. Okay, so this needed to be done. And by the way, this plan on the right, we actually doubled the spending to 8. We've able to bring it back down to 6 to put us on a steadier ramp so that it's more sustainable in the long run. And then eventually we'll be able to go back down to at least $4 million in today's dollars. You can see the pictures here. On the left is 2018, on the right is 2023. You can see how much more blue, how much less red that we had. So that gives you a really good visual of what that looked like. And that's how we go, that's how we decide where to go as well. We decide based on the conditions of the roads. So additional investments that we made in the last 5 years, 67 road areas we've gotten into out of our 230 or so. In 2025, 8 more areas are going to be repaired, and we're about 6 to 7 years ahead of the schedule when I arrived here. So Brook Hills 2 is getting done this year. I believe it's about 33 or 34 years old. They haven't been touched. And if we would have stayed on the schedule we were on, they wouldn't have gotten touched until 2032. So they'd be in a lot worse condition. So we've really made some huge strides in that area. We also looked at our parks. Again, this is all fact-based. We try to develop a fact base for how to get into things. So you'll see there's a legend on the bottom, and you can see anything between 2.3, I think, and 2.9 is in the yellow. And so we tried to get everything that was in yellow. First, we got everything that was in orange. We fixed it. Then we tried to get everything in yellow fixed. In 2018, our average rating was 2.82. It's 3.56 in 2023. Okay. We had 16 playgrounds that were less than a 2.5 rating. 39 playgrounds that were less than a 2.5 rating in 2016 or 2018, and in 2023 it was down to 16. We got into 23 of those parks to get them completely fixed. The pavilions, we didn't rate them year one, the first time, but we start looking at it now and seeing what those conditions are as well. So there were only 4 pavilions less than a 2.5 in 2023. So, and the average condition was 3.5 because we put a lot of money into those as well. The plan going forward, for 24 to 28, 17 more parks to get renovated, 10 pavilions to be renovated. The yearly plan you can see below. Schuessler Park this year, Schuessler Park and Dugan Park. Schuessler Park's going to get finished, and 3 playgrounds, 2 more pavilions. And then by 2028, we'll be more on a steady state that we can do every year without this additional money anymore. We'll be caught up. So they had fixed 10 parks in the previous 20 years when I got here, and we've fixed 35 major renovations by the end of this year. So in 6 years. So just a great job done by staff and by our board for approving that. You can see 25 basketball courts, 19 tennis and pickleball courts. That's over 85% of those courts. We've also resurfaced. We've added batting cages and backstops to like 12 different fields and parks. Pavilions, we've done 34 of them. And you can see, it's a little hard here, but if you go back and look at it, and people that are watching it via video can certainly blow this up and look at it. You can see where the parks have been fixed in the green. Those are the ones that have been fixed in the last 2020 to 2024. 2025 is in the blue. So you get a feel for where we're fixing parks. We're fixing them everywhere in town. The idea that, we only spend money here, that doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. We go to where the parks need to be fixed. Other projects we've done include Bike Pass, 104th Street is one that has been done recently. Dr. Marsh that you see there, also the Levy Center, refinished made the dance studio and dance floors and have done a lot of work there. We also, this year, we're going to do Schuessler Park Phase 2, All Abilities Playground, and the Dugan Park renovations, which you can see here. Those smaller courts are pickleball courts. They're going to be lighted. Renovate the soccer field and the ball field eventually. We're going to put a sledding hill up in the upper left corner there that you see, and adding a playground. So that's where, the green space between the parking lot and that circle in the blue, that's where the old library was, the cultural center. So gives you an idea of what that's going to look like. So again, a major park renovation there. And we got a $600,000 grant to apply to that. We also did the Veterans Center, which we opened last November, and then the Athletics Garage, which we're going to open this week. So it will be fully bricked by that time. The new police firing range training facility in EOC will open in the coming months. So here's some pictures. The one on the left is actually through an observation room down the range. They'll be able to pull a vehicle in that range. And no, I get this question, will residents be able to use it? No, you're not able to use it. It is not a commercial firing range. And when I see that, we can go use the commercial firing ranges. Well, standing at a line and shooting doesn't really help our officers because they're not going to be standing in a line and shooting. This allows them to go in to this area and move and go left and right,
have obstacles. We can bring cars in there and do real world stuff. They do things like how do you shoot through a vehicle, things like that. Those are the real world training that they can get here that they won't be able to get anywhere else. The room in the upper right there, that's a simulator room, and it's huge. And right now they got a tiny little simulator room. Now you'll be able to actually eventually do 360 screens with VR as well, and do some real world, more advanced training. So major renovations we've also done. We talked about Centennial Park, West Schuster Park, and John Humphrey. We've got a short little 1-minute video so you can kind of see what those look like. And I've heard a lot lately about, oh, we need to make money on those parks. And nobody here on the board, not us, we don't build parks to make money. You don't build parks in your neighborhood. They're not money makers. They're for kids and families to go out and enjoy. And when I'm out there right now and I'm talking to people, they live over behind St. Michael's, and they say their kids ride their bikes all the way to Schuster Park to go play at Schuster Park. That's what we want to see. They're not here. They're not sitting in front of a TV. They're out there playing at Schuster Park. That's exactly what we wanted. And I've heard it time and again from people who live there. It's revitalized their neighborhood. The kids are out there all the time. They haven't seen kids there in years. So it's fantastic. That's why we do things. So that wraps up my part of the presentation, other than answering questions from you. So do you have any questions? And you got one? Anybody have questions? Come on, gotta have some questions. Yeah, and preferably a question, not a filibuster.
Never from me.
No, Mayor Pica, you finished.
Use the mic.
You finished talking about the parks. It seems like at board meetings, with all the great improvements, there still seems to be people coming forward raising concerns, not disrespecting those concerns, but why does that seem to carry a lot of noise, even though all these tremendous improvements have come along? What do you think is the foundation for some of those comments and remarks?
So there's things I've learned as mayor. There's two things people don't like. They don't like the way things are, and they don't like change. And so when they see change, they complain. And people think that their idea should get implemented. There's 60,000 ideas on how something should get done. And we can't take all of those 60,000 people's opinions and do them all. We held multiple meetings, like dozens of meetings for both Schuster Park and Centennial Park West, to get community input, to get, I know we have a rec advisory board member here. They took hearings as well, and they all gave their inputs. And a lot of those inputs we took into consideration and did. Some of them we didn't. Could be money, could be they're not practical. One that I hear a lot is, oh, why didn't you put bathrooms at Centennial Park West? I won't go there if you don't put bathrooms. Well, permanent bathrooms at Centennial Park West, one, it eats up a lot of space. But two, to put up enough bathrooms, now hear this out, to put up enough bathrooms to be half of what we need for Taste of Orland Park would cost $9 million. The whole of the project cost 12, or a little over 12. Okay? $9 million for bathrooms that we would have to secure all the time. We would have to clean all the time for events we don't have all the time, and eat up a ton of space that could otherwise be used for people to watch the concert. And I can promise you the place that it would go is behind the current fence. Then the complaint would be the bathrooms are too far away. So
we elected instead to go with porta potties because they're dropped off clean for the event. And they're not left out there for weeks. They're dropped off clean for the event, like I said. And we did hear what some of the complaints were. And the women were complaining, so we made some women-only porta potties out there. We just approved this the other night. The porta potties for all of Orland Park, including our events, but also all of the other parks, okay? All combined for the year, the cost of the porta potties. We can pay for those porta potties for 120 years before we get to $9 million, okay? And that doesn't include the cost of cleaning and everything else. I would say probably the cost of cleaning and taking care of that one bathroom is probably half of the cost of the porta potties for all of Orland Park. So now for Taste of Orland, we can have 42 out there that we need. For a concert, we can have 26 that we need. For a market on the park, we can have 4 or 6 that we need. We can get the right amount for the right, and we can put them where we need to, based on how that event makes the event space more flexible. A future board could always put permanent bathrooms out there. I'll just tell you, I think it's cost prohibitive. And we have a good other option. Any other questions? Boy, you're an easy crowd.
You know, I'm just kind of curious, looking at your analysis of our real estate tax bills, if you think the consolidation of the fire department between Tinley and Orland would reduce their needs.
So how many people have heard about the supposed consolidation of the fire department? Yeah, that's a bunch of garbage. It's not true, okay? The people that are doing it, I'll tell you who's doing it because they've been making phone calls doing it, and they did robocalls doing it. Jerry Gorman, Liz Gorman, 3 candidates, Casper, Jeffers, and the one other that's Tobin. They're running with them. They've been making phone calls. They're trying to scare people to vote for them. That's what they're doing. The mechanics of doing this, and our attorneys could jump in, they're very complicated. You'd have to pass a referendum in Orland Park, Orland Hills, and Tinley Park. Tinley Park would have to agree to do it. Orland Park has no say. The Village of Orland Park has no say over it. So we can't even put it on the ballot. It would have to be a referendum. It's easy for the board to put something on the ballot that's binding. It's very hard to get something on the ballot that's binding from residents. They have to sign. It's a huge number of petition signatures. The ability to do this, I had people there asking me, where's the referendum on this? There is no referendum. It's complete hooey. I've said it 3 times. The Tinley Park mayor said it a couple of times. The fire chief has said it. This is not happening. If it ever were to happen, one, we would oppose it. I'm assuming a future board would oppose it. I know the residents would oppose it. And there would be a referendum. And you would have an opportunity to really voice your displeasure. So it is not happening. They can't just do it to you. They are doing that solely to scare you into voting for them. And you have to ask yourself, if someone's willing to do that to scare you into voting for them, what do they want out of it? How important, for a non-paying position, what are they getting out of it? The fire union has also said this is crazy, right? So just not true. So that's the best I can say about it. Any other questions?
How do we fight some of these bills coming out of Springfield?
So you can go sign witness slips, and believe me, if you sign enough, if enough people sign it, people do listen. They sometimes listen. The mayors do that. I filled out 40 witness slips the other night opposing some. The homeschool one, go fill out a witness slip. That's what you have to do. There's a lot of bad bills.
How do we get it out, what they're doing in Springfield? And
You text, you call, you do all of that stuff. There's people on social media trying to get it out. You know, that's how you get it out. That's how you get the information out. I would say there are better social media sites than others to listen to, and also whatever you see in social media, because you're seeing this fire merger too. You need to research it to see if it's actually true. But in this case, there's a bill, and you can read the bill, right? So you know who's telling you the truth, who's not. But go and sign up on those witness slips to stop those things. Ultimately, with the way the legislature's set up right now, it seems like there's mostly nothing good coming out of there, and we're just trying to stop bad. And I think anyone who deals with the state on a regular basis would probably nod their head. We're basically trying to stop them from doing stupid stuff, because they don't seem to be interested in doing any, like fixing pension. There's 100 bills to increase pension benefits. 100. I just showed you what's happening with that. There's over 100 bills to do that. Mayors are pushing against, because we know. We know, but frankly, they don't care. They don't care because they're the people that are funding them and want it, and so they're going to keep pushing it because they're going to grab their pension, they're going to leave, and most of them are older. It's going to be the people who are 20, 30, 40, they're going to be stuck at the end. It's like musical chairs, and they just keep pulling the chairs. And then the last one's left, they're left without a seat, and that's what's going to happen.
Because I'm more concerned with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a bill out there that now pedophiles can be closer to parks and schools. And this seems to be what the Democrats are doing and coming out with in Springfield. And people need to understand and see these bills that are coming out. The one where she wanted parents to be arrested if they didn't agree with transgender surgeries. Why are they so perverted is what I want to know.
I've seen these bills, and you're right. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. These bills where parents don't have a say over, over transgender surgeries, the pedophiles being closer to schools, all of these bills. I mean, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I think most people view it as crazy. I think those bills will not get passed anything because I think there's enough of them there that are still have some sanity. But it's certainly, there's more and more every cycle, every legislative cycle. There seems to be more and more people that are kind of on that, they're kind of going nuts on some of this stuff, and they're not using common sense. I still think there's enough common sense to stop some of that stuff, but you just have to keep have to keep being vocal. You have to let your legislator know. Everyone in here has a legislator, has a rep and a senator. Let them know. The village has 5 reps and 4 senators because they divided up our vote. But we reach out to all of them on this stuff all the time.
So you get yourself involved with this stuff too,
We do.
as mayor, to say, no, I don't.
We do. We sign witness slips and do all that. Some of those bills, of all the people there's maybe 10 that agree with it, so they're not going anywhere. So I don't really waste any time or energy on bills that I know aren't going anywhere and don't have any chance of seeing the light of day. And some of those bills are those types of bills. But it's still the fact that someone would put it up there is kind of nerve-wracking for sure and kind of scary. But the bills that look like they get traction or potentially could get traction, we have the IML Municipal League that tracks that stuff, does a really good job, and they let us know when something's getting kind of too far along than it should, and then we get involved. And the mayors generally get involved. Any other questions? None? I guess I must have covered everything pretty well. So, I really want to thank everyone for coming out. Orland Park is doing amazing. We've done a complete turnaround in the last 8 years from where we were headed. You saw that financial thing where we were headed off a cliff, basically. And we were able to get all this infrastructure stuff done and still fix our finances, all this economic development that's coming, and we've kept you safe. Those are things we've done. And it's a testament to our board, but it's also a testament to all of our staff. We have great people here that care about the village, from our police officers to finance to HR, and I'm going to miss someone, so I apologize. Public Works, our Parks Department. We have a lot of great, really good people that care about the village and try and do the best job they can, and they get the support from the board to do that. And also from our interim village manager, Jim, who oversees all of it, all of our directors. I mean, it's a team effort, up and down. And it's a team effort as well in that we need your input. Because if you think we can cover 22 square miles and know that there's a bunch of trash at a trash can at Eagle Ridge Street Park, we might see it, but we can't comb 22 square miles. There's 60,000 people that use these things. If you see something that looks crappy, You know, I mean, I do it all the time when I'm walking into Centennial Park. I'll just pick it up if it's 1 or 2 pieces and throw it away. Do that. But if it's something that's egregious and there's a lot, you know, you can make a call to the village. You can go to the 311 system and get the information to the village. You can get that information to the village, and it creates a work ticket, and we'll go out and take care of it. So we will definitely do that. Same thing with police. If you see something wrong out there, say something. Say this all the time. I tell my kids this. We, as human beings, have instincts for a reason. When your skin gets tingly and your hair standing up on your back and neck, that is, you know, hundreds of thousands of years of development and evolution that have given us those instincts. And if your spidey senses are tingling, then it's telling you something's wrong. And I'll guarantee you, almost every time, your instincts will be right. So trust your instincts. If something is out of place and you think it's out of place, call us. And if it turns out not to be, no harm. Our police went out there, they checked it out, everything's safe. But that time you don't make a call and then something happens, then you know it's a big deal. So everyone in the village has a role to play in keeping this village looking good, because we can't do it all here as a staff, and the staff, like I said, does an amazing job. So I want to thank everyone for coming out today and being here for this, and hopefully it was informative. Thank you.